What I find crazy is that a lot of people think that what we are starting to see announced today is new. But what if I told you that everything that we're actually witnessing right now is all a part of the same exact plan that has been outlined for years now, especially going all the way back to one of the most significant years for all of this, 2020. Welcome to the channel, everyone. My name is Nick. For those that are new to the channel, hopefully by the end of this video, you do become a subscriber. March of 2020 was a very significant time because what we witnessed from COVID was an accelerated push for digitalization. I think that this is actually very clear from what the IMF was telling us back in 2020. Here we have Kristalina Georgieva. It's time to look at the opportunities we have to overcome this crisis, expanding the digital transformation, investing in a climate resilient future, focusing on social protection so we don't fall into a great reversal, but move forward to a great reset. Interesting. This is coming from the IMF back in June of 2020. A lot of people did not even look into this. They didn't even care about this because of the world around them. But check this out.
And we know that on the other side, there will be more debt, there will be more deficits, there is likely to be more unemployment. And unfortunately, going to the start of our conversation, there is risk of more poverty, more inequality. So we have to think of the opportunities ahead of us to overcome risks. And what are the opportunities? Well, number one, everybody recognizes that digital is the big winner of this crisis. Expanding the digital transformation and making sure that people and countries are not left out, that it is expanding as opportunities across the world. Second, we have a chance to use our stimulus to invest in low carbon, climate resilient future. And three, we can address social protection needs. We are a rich world, David. Even with this crisis, even with the minus 3% growth, we are over $80 trillion GDP world. We have to distribute the benefits of growth in a more equitable manner. So we have a better world on the other side. And many countries are talking about it. How can we build for the future, not slide back? We have a choice. Either we are in the great reversal, or we go for a great reset.
Now, what's even more interesting about this time period is January of 2020, before, COVID, before anything actually happened, Brad Garlinghouse, CEO of Ripple, talks about the difference between stablecoins and XRP. This is actually very important today. All countries will eventually create their own CBDC. In this case, stablecoins could be that. XRP will be the bridge. Check this out.
Well, one thing to jump off of that point, stablecoins are all the rage right now. Everybody's coming out with a dollar-backed or some other sort of asset-backed coins that they can conduct trades quickly, seamlessly, but also without the volatility. So what would be the advantage of using XRP, for instance, rather than using, one of these more sort of like designed to be fully stable assets?
Yeah, a stable coin like USDC, for example, that Coinbase and Circle have done. I think that is interesting in mitigating volatility, but you still have to go from dollar to peso, right? So at some point you have a bridge. Somebody has to bridge that. And in effect, what Ripple's doing is let's make XRP the most efficient, the most liquid, and the easiest to bridge by selling effectively the connectors on both ends, selling APIs to allow people to connect to both ends of that. If we have hundreds of banks interconnected to use XRP for that, I think that bodes well for the liquidity of XRP.
It's basically who has the most liquidity is going to win this game.
I mean, that's what I believe. I think different people believe different things, but that's okay.
And this was very important to, really kind of listen to back in 2020. But it's even more important nowadays, especially with, stablecoins now representing 1% of the M2 global money supply. Stablecoins being adopted every single, day now. We have more and more stablecoin announcements every single day than ever before. But what's crazy about this is back in 2023. Okay, so here's a little bit more of an updated view. The IMF says central bank digital currencies can replace cash. This is not the time to turn back. Stablecoins are basically CBDCs. I want you guys to understand that. I want you guys to realize what stablecoins actually are becoming. But this is actually from Kristalina Georgieva as well. She said that the public sector should keep preparing to deploy central bank digital currencies and related payment platforms in the future. We have not yet reached land. There is so much more space for innovation and so much uncertainty over use cases. Now, at that time, only 11 countries actually adopted CBDCs from the Atlantic Council. I think nowadays it's actually a little bit more than that. But 98% of central banks are looking into CBDCs. They still are actively looking into them. But I bring all of this stuff up because of what we recently saw announced from the IMF. And we have here from Gold Telegraph, the International Monetary Fund says the world economic order is undergoing a major reset. There you have it. The global economic system under which most countries have operated for the last 80 years is being reset, ushering the world into a new era. Now, if we go into this and we actually look into where they do say that, we could see that it's the first line here. We have existing rules are challenged while new ones are yet to emerge. Since late January, a flurry of tariff announcements by the US, which started with Canada, China, Mexico, and critical sectors, culminated with near universal levies on April 2nd. The U.S. effective tariff rate surged past levels reached during the Great Depression, while counter responses from major trading partners significantly pushed up the global rate. Now, again, they're talking about the tariffs and all this stuff, but let's just be honest. Let's be real on what the tariff discussions and all of these trade wars and all of these big conflicts actually are. They are an accelerated event. We are very well aware of how they utilize these events to push what they want, right? COVID 2020 was a perfect time period to actually focus on with this because it wasn't just the IMF saying the Great Reset. The World Economic Forum was pushing the Great Reset. All of the big organizations, even the World Bank, pushing the Great Reset. Now we're seeing the digital transformation. How can we, accelerate the digital transformation? Well, we, create this big conflict, this trade war, and all of a sudden that accelerates the push on digital currencies and stablecoin initiatives and, getting away from the US dollar. And then we think about what, Scott Bessent recently told us as well, which is the IMF and the World Bank have enduring value, but mission creep has knocked these institutions off course. We must enact key reforms to ensure the Bretton Woods institutions are serving their stakeholders, not the other way around. Now, this was not the only post that he made. I'm actually going to be talking about the second post because I already played this video clip in a previous video. I'll play it again just for, you guys that, didn't watch that video. And then I want to play the additional clip from Scott Bessent. Check this one out.
I have spent the bulk of my career from the outside looking in on financial policy circles. Now I am on the inside looking out. I am eager to work with each of you to restore order to the international system. To achieve this, however, we must first reconstruct the IMF and World Bank reconnect the IMF and the World Bank with their founding missions. The IMF and World Bank have enduring value, but mission creep has knocked these institutions off course. We must enact key reforms to ensure the Bretton Woods institutions are serving their stakeholders, not the other way around.
So basically this, was an announcement that the IMF and the World Bank need to get in line. We're going to see, a completely different change happening here across the board. And all of this is leading back to the big word, right? The reset. We're seeing a major reset across the board. It's not just about a reform with the IMF and the World Bank. No, it's a complete reset across the entire board. But also we have over here, we must make the IMF again. The IMF was once unwavering in its mission of promoting global monetary cooperation and financial stability. Now it devotes disproportionate time and resources to work on climate change, gender, and social issues. These issues are not the IMF mission.
First, we must make the IMF again. The IMF's mission is to promote international monetary cooperation, facilitate the balanced growth of international trade, encourage economic growth, and discourage harmful policies like competitive exchange rate depreciation. These are crucially important functions to support the U.S. and global economies. Instead, the IMF has suffered from mission creep. The IMF was once unwavering in its mission of promoting global monetary cooperation and financial stability. Now it devotes disproportionate time and resources to work on climate change, gender, and social issues. These issues are not the IMF mission. And the IMF's focus in these areas is crowding out its work on critical macroeconomic issues. The IMF must be a brutal truth teller and not just to some members. Today, the IMF has been whistling past the graveyard. Its 2024 external sector report was entitled Imbalances Receding. This Pollyannish outlook is symptomatic of an institution more dedicated to preserving the status quo than answering the hard questions.
So yeah, I mean, listen, we could see that there's big concerns here, obviously. Number one, when it comes to the IMF, when it comes to any of these organizations, yeah, they definitely are focused on the wrong things. But behind all of this is just a growing pressure waiting to explode. And out of that will be the reset. Like everything that we've been seeing over the last couple of years, I mean, you could even say the last decade, almost 2 decades now, it's going all the way back to 2008, right? We're coming up on almost 20 years since 2008. And what has changed? Absolutely nothing. We haven't fixed the problems. So when we think about that, you know, what's going to happen next? Well, we already have the answer here, right? Like they've told us about CBDCs for years and years and years now. Now, all of a sudden, all we hear about is stablecoins. And everyone immediately thinks, oh, well, you know, I love stablecoins. I hate CBDCs. That's the growing narrative around this space. I want you guys to understand that stablecoins are also programmable. All of these issuers around stablecoins can easily program them. And, you know, the government can also make sure that those private companies, in this case, it could be Circle, it could be Ripple, it doesn't matter. You know, the government can make sure that they are, you know, doing what they want because those private companies have to abide by regulations and they have to become compliant. So when we think about what's really going on here, CBDCs are still prominent. We're still seeing a transition to CBDCs. Scott Bessent has been very vocal about stablecoins as well. And even if we go all the way back to, you know, October 25th, Zonix, right, who has partnered up with a lot of great names in this space, of course, Ripple, Hedera, and a few other ones. They outlined what the BIS and the CPMI group, which Ripple is a part of, presented to the G20 explored, which was tokenization of money and other assets and its implications for central banks. These were the main ones. Tokenization defined. It refers to digitally representing traditional assets on programmable platforms like DLT, multi-asset platforms. Token arrangements enable multi-asset, multi-function transactions on a single platform, improving integration, efficiency gains. Tokenization can reduce transaction costs, increase transparency, and speed up processes, especially for cross-border payments. Programmability, automation through smart contracts, enables traditional transactions like atomic settlements, e.g. DVP, eliminating risk. And then, of course, the risk, they do talk about them here. Then central bank rules. So central banks must provide settlement assets, e.g. CBDCs, and ensure interoperability across platforms. Market impact. Tokenization could affect monetary policy and the demand for central bank money. Public-private cooperation is essential for managing risk and promoting standardization. And then, of course, network effects. Token arrangements thrive on network effects, but need critical mass to scale. So when we think about what's going on here, right, everything's being prepped and prepared. And even now, with all of these, stablecoin initiatives, I've been talking about them for the last couple of days, like MasterCard, Circle, even Stripe, like all of them are starting to accelerate, push out, stablecoin initiatives. Even announcements around stablecoin initiatives are growing every single day. This is all a part of the same plan. Everything has been the same for well over a decade now around a lot of these big plans. You go back and you read, the big updates from the World Economic Forum. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. This is all still promoting, the digital form of currency becoming the dominant form of currency. This is exactly what the IMF has been stating. This is exactly what, the World Economic Forum has been stating. And now we're starting to see the big players talking about how the IMF and the World Bank need to get in line. I guarantee you what Scott Bessent is talking about here is the IMF and the World Bank starting to accelerate the adoption of digital currencies, stablecoins, tokenization, because that's exactly what Scott Bessent wants. That's what he's been very vocal about. This entire Trump admin has been very vocal about it as well, talking about how blockchain can, completely improve the financial system. It can, make sure that, SWIFT, which is a broken network, is no longer broken, and it could accelerate payments and improve cross-border payments and this, that, whatever. It's all to promote the same exact great reset narrative, which has been growing for, well over a decade now. So when we think about what's happening here, yeah, the IMF is telling us that a reset is coming. We know that finance is undergoing a major reset. It's been ongoing since going back to even prior to 2020, but 2020 accelerated it in a big way. But this has been ongoing for a while now. Everyone's been wondering, like, all right, I thought this was going to happen. When is it going to actually happen? It's happening slowly but surely. When it's something as big as the global financial system changing, when something like that is changing, it doesn't happen overnight. It happens over the course of years. And guess what? I do think that we're getting closer and closer to the finish line by having these big players tokenize and, launch stablecoin initiatives and talk about, stablecoins and crypto in the way that they have been. I feel like we're so close to that finish line. I mean, it's crazy to see the announcements that have happened in just the last 5 years alone. In the last 5 years alone, we've watched crypto become like a huge piece of the global system. We now have governments talking about how they can utilize and integrate these technologies to support their reserve currency. If you go back 3, 4, 5 years ago, these types of conversations would be, absolutely massive. Today, it feels normal because of what's been happening in crypto. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, this has been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.